All right, guys, Beowulf 19. They sank into deep sleep. The price of that evening's rest was too high for the Dane who bought it with his life, paying as others had paid when Grendel inhabited Herat. The hall, his till his They sank into deep sleep. The price of that evening's rest was too high for the Dane who bought it with his life, paying as others had paid when Grendel inhabited Herat. The hall, his till, his crimes pulled him into hell, and now it was known that a monster had died, but a monster still lived and meant revenge. She brooded on her loss. Misery had brewed in her heart. That female horror, Grendel's mother, living in the murky cold lake, assigned her since Cain had killed his only brother, slain his father's son with an angry sword. God drove him off, outlawed him to the dry and barren desert, and branded him with the murderer's mark. And he bore a race of fiends, accursed like their father, so Grendel was drawn to Herat. An outcast come to meet the man who awaited him. He'd snatched at Beowulf's arm, but that prince remembered God's grace and the strength he'd given him and relied on the Lord for all the help, the comfort and support he would need. He killed the monster as God had meant him to do, tore the fiend apart, and forced him to run as rapidly as he could towards death's cold waiting hands. His mother's sad heart and her greed drove her from her den on the dangerous pathway of revenge. So she reached Herat, where the Danes slept as though already dead. Her visit ended their good fortune, reversed the bright vein of their luck. No female, no matter how fierce, could have come with a man's strength, fought with the power and courage men fight with, smashing their shining swords, their bloody hammer forged blades onto boar-headed helmets, slashing and stabbing with the sharpest of points. The soldiers raised their shields and drew those gleaming swords, swung them above the piled-up benches, leaving their mail shirts and their helmets where they'd lain when the terror took hold of them. To save her life, she moved still faster, took a single victim, and fled from the hall, running to the moors, discovered but her supper assured, sheltered in her dripping claws. She'd taken Hrothgar's closest friend, the man he most loved of all men on earth. She killed a glorious soldier, cut a noble life short. No geek could have stopped her. Beowulf and his band had given better beds. Sleep had come to them in a different hall. Then all Herat burst into shouts. She had carried off Grendel's claw. Sorrow had returned to Denmark. They traded death's stains and monsters, and no one had won, both had lost. The wise old king trembled in anger and grief, his dearest friend and adviser dead. Beowulf was sent for at once. A messenger went swiftly to his rooms and brought him. He came, his band about him as dawn was breaking through, the best of all warriors walking to where Hrothgar sat waiting, the gray-haired king wondering if God would ever end this misery. The Geats tramped quickly through the hall. Their steps beat and echoed in the silence. Beowulf rehearsed the words he would want with Hrothgar. He'd asked the Danes, great lord, if all were at peace, if the night had passed quietly. So Beowulf rehearsed the words he would want with Hrothgar. He'd asked the Danes, great lord, if all were at peace, if the night had passed quietly. So he's asking the king. That's how that chapter ends. He's just asking what happened, pretty much. Because he just got woken up from sleep. I guess he was in a deep sleep. But really, he should have been guarding Herat, or the Hall of Herat. And we all peace.